We have a very eminent personality to speak to you, almost in continuation with the inaugural lecture which we just heard. Mr. Ramakrishna is a person who needs few words for his introduction. But to do that, I would request Mr. Kailasanathan, Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer and Head Business Excellence from Titan Industries, to introduce Mr. Ramakrishna.
Good morning, friends. It's my honor and privilege to introduce Mr. Ramakrishna. Mr. Ramakrishna is presently the Director of International Infrastructure Consultants Private Limited. He is a specialist in structural engineering. He obtained his degree in civil engineering from Andhra University and master's from College of Engineering, Guindy. He started his career with ECC, the construction division of L&T, and then he was, after taking up various assignments, he became the operational head of ECC in 1992, and he was inducted to the board of directors of L&T. He is a specialist in precast, pre-stressed concrete, and industrial methods of construction, and his work has been recognized by Andhra University by conferring on him a doctorate of Science in 1997, and by Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University with the honorary degree of Doctor of Philosophy in 2004. He has had tremendous experience in construction of cement plants, steel plants, power projects, refineries, petrochemical complexes, besides outstanding buildings, roads, bridges, harbors, airports, water supply projects, and nuclear power plants. He was elevated as Deputy Managing Director in March 2000. Under his leadership, L&T's ECC division grew from 450 crores in 1992 to over 6,900 crores in 2004. Then he retired from the services of the company. He is associated with a number of national and international bodies in this relevant area of construction. His resume reads quite long, and I would request you to please go through that. He is going to talk to us today on a topic which we had a very good speech in the morning by Mr. Mohandas Pai, that is leadership, ethics, and business. The leadership part, we saw what Mr. Pai had to say about the qualities of a leader and what is expected of a leader. The second part of the presentation, which is on ethics and business, is what we will be having a presentation from Mr. Ramakrishna. Let me welcome Mr. Ramakrishna. Thank you.
A very good morning, distinguished leaders and business managers. I'm extremely happy to stand before you, ladies and gentlemen, and tell a little about my own experience, because leadership is different from person to person in a way how he manages whatever he wanted to achieve. And therefore, I don't think there is such a hard and fast, uniform rule what makes a leader and a successful leader at that. And everyone has to, I think, find the right solution, and that is why the leadership is so difficult, that in difficult and different situations, we have to find solutions, but it has to be anchored in certain values and ethics and certain beliefs. Then only it will have sustainability. And therefore, what I would like to deal with is more of my own experience, because fortunately I heard Mr. Mohandas Pai speak to us in the morning, and also supplemented by a lot of questions and answers. And I believe a lot has been covered by him. And so what really I wanted to tell as a part of my introduction on leadership's ethics and business, I think to some extent it is taken care of. So what I'm going to tell you or speak to you is more of my experience in different situations in trying to take Larsen & Toubro, which is the company which I worked for 43 years, right from my education. Once it is finished in a certain phase, then I got educated much more in Larsen and Toubro. And I continue to learn, even though I am also a faculty member now after retirement in IIT Madras. But there, of course, apart from technical aspects, which is structural engineering, which I specialize, but also in management, especially in the new type of project business that has developed to some extent, is the public-private partnership, and what models that have come out of that to make success that was not possible otherwise, because just by budgetary allocations of money, the infrastructure and various other projects are not coming up as the country needs. And we have learned from other countries and have really taken some strides in this direction. So what I would like to tell on this topic of excellence in leadership is more from my experience, and then I am keenly looking forward to a discussion, and Dr. Sangeeta Menon has also told me I would restrict myself to talking for about 45 minutes and increase the time for discussion, which I think we are all equals. There's nothing like I am a lecturer or a professor and you are all students. It's not like that. It is exchanging ideas. Ultimately, what is the purpose? And the country has to move forward with all our experience, and what are the right directions, what is the way we can make a success and take our rightful place in the comity of nations. I think that will be my approach. And I must say, first of all, thanks to Dr. Kasturi Rangan, who has been an excellent leader in his own sphere and has given me this opportunity to come and talk to you a little bit of my experience, share my experience with you. And he himself is such a leader that he has created, I must say, from nothing practically, from feeling that India is probably nowhere near that in that field, that he has created a feeling that we are already number 4 or 5 in the world, and we can go forward and reach among the top nations who are in the space missions, and what we can achieve for the benefit of our country and the benefit of humanity. I must say, the way a public sector organization has approached and make this possible in India with all the forces that are at play, I must compliment Dr. Kasturi Rangan and his team of people, because he has built up an organization which has got so many leaders to pursue his own, you can say, vision for the space research. And I'm also recollecting some of the experiences told by Dr. Abdul Kalam, because those are the type of qualities which are required in a leader. For example, Dr. Abdul Kalam told that when he was in charge of one mission and the rocket was fired from GSLV or PSLV, I don't remember which one, I think PSLV, and Satish Dhawan was the director in charge, and Mr. Dr. Abdul Kalam was really responsible for making all that to happen from a managerial perspective. And it so happened that mission failed. And that is the time when Satish Dhawan's leadership quality came out, when he said, Abdul Kalam and the people who are directly involved in really doing everything that was required for that, and unfortunately it was a failure, he asked them to go in the background, took on himself all the blame, and said, we have made mistakes here, we have made... And then he made it in such a way that he took a role to explain to the public, yes, everything has been done, but all the failure is to some extent due to me, and took the blame on himself. And within a few months, once again, the same experiment was, or same launch was conducted. Then it was a success. He disappeared and asked Dr. Abdul Kalam and his scientists to stand in the front and get all the glory that they deserved. But, you know, that action of Satish Dhawan is what Dr. Abdul Kalam really mentioned. In a way, that is an Indian-ness in that, to a great extent, which has come from our own value system, that when it comes to gurus, they don't mind taking all the blame, but trying to make sure that the Sishyas gain the right attitudes and right capacity to sacrifice. I think this is one thing which is not in the Western concept as much as probably in our Indian ethos. I think that I cited in the beginning because it has an example for all of us as leaders to follow, that it is our responsibility to bring up a lot of successors. And I think in the morning, when Mr. Pai was also mentioning, it is very clear, one of the most important roles of the leader is to create more leaders for sustaining whatever activity you have planned. You had a vision, you had a mission, you had all value system behind. That is the only way to move forward so that whatever we want to do can be sustained. The next I would like to take as an example is, we as Larsen & Toubro have built many projects in this country and in the neighboring countries, and very successfully. And we always felt a pleasure of doing, and in a way comparing ourselves and doing. We have done faster than the Germans, the Americans, the British, the Japanese. We have done more economical than anybody else. We have done better quality. Those are the things we were trying to do by benchmarking ourselves. And I think that's in every field, if everyone looks at it that way, and in space research we are in 5th or 6th position, and then we are climbing up to 2nd or 3rd position, or whatever it is. That is the way every field of activity we have to benchmark ourselves. And if in every sphere of activity we come to the top few positions, then I think the whole country will come to the pinnacle of success, which I think we richly deserve. And we are aiming, and I think there's every possibility that we will be in the top 3 or 4 nations in the next 20, 30 years. It is very much predicted based on certain economic perspectives that have been developed. But it has to be anchored. If we have to really succeed over others, it has to be anchored in the value system and ethical behavior of our leaders. Then it will be sustainable. I think whatever has been discussed about Satyam and so many others are the problems that have created as a doubt about India and our own past experiences, is that are we really capable of reaching the levels which some other advanced countries have reached, materially speaking. But I think materially speaking, we will and we have the potential to reach. But what we must show as a difference compared to the others is we have a much higher ethical standard because of our culture and background, that what Mahatma Gandhi represented was quite unique. And we got independence in a different way than any other country. And some of our other leadership which followed also followed certain policies. We just did not ape or imitate the developed West. We did not also imitate what Soviet Union stood for. And we always believed that there is a middle path, that there is a way which we can take this country forward without losing those values which we should cherish. But unfortunately, as everyone knows, that in the present context, sometimes we get a self-doubt. Are we going in the right direction? Are we going to sustain this? Is India as a nation going to succeed and continue in a higher pace? I think those doubts are coming because of the doubts. We have taken certain paths based on materialistic growth, which is nothing wrong in doing that, but we have no confidence or no, you can say, faith in our own value system. I think once we have that value system in the back of our mind, and every leader has got that value system strongly, I believe this country will develop many more leaders who can sustain this development in the right direction. I think that's what I sincerely believe. You take Jrd Tata. This whole organization is in a way founded by the vision of Jrd Tata and his successors. We have worked as Larsen & Toubro for more than 33 years continuously, and we are continuing to work for building all the steel plant projects of Tata Steel, wherever they are. And we have almost developed without having it in a written form, that we have a sustained partnership in approaching. And we built some very exquisite projects with our own ideas, and of course, naturally, based on the requirements of Tata Steel, that we could complete a blast furnace, which is very old, 69 years old to be exact. We removed that blast furnace and put a new blast furnace, and with all the connected activities, so that the plant can continue to run except for the shutdown period. And that shutdown period, we agreed as a contract to try and do it in 120 days. And we set for ourselves a target of 90 days, and we finished that in 86 days. And then the plant was functioning, and 30% increase in capacity happened, and the steel plant got a lot more profits. And ultimately, when our man in charge, our vice president in charge, approached Mr. Muthuraman, you have benefited so much, but we have just made some minor profit. I think you should really do something about it. Then they had, it's not literally a contract. They really took pains to talk to Mr. Ratan Tata and others concerned, and paid us an extra bonus as a percentage of what profit they made additionally because of this additional time they gained in production. That sort of an approach cannot come from contracts and rules and regulations, but also agreed terms and conditions. It went beyond those agreed terms and conditions. What I'm trying to emphasize is leadership is that which will not be bound by the rules created by its own management. It is of course necessary, but at times when you have to encourage a certain thing, when you have done a world-class performance in a short time and in a high quality, and it is adding to your profitability and quality of performance, that you are sharing your prosperity with somebody who has worked for you. I think that's a great example, because I don't find many companies can decide such things very easily, and I have a great pleasure that to recall these incidents to many of the customers, because many projects in Tata Steel, to be specific, of course we work for other organizations as well in Tata Group. They have been giving us opportunity to demonstrate our skill or our technology in certain areas which we wanted to do very much and prove to ourselves that we can do better than other countries. For example, there's a cold rolling mill which took, for the Japanese who supplied certain technology for the plant and machinery, 26 months in their own country in Japan. And we could make it in 22 months in India. Because we have people, we have got that commitment, we have got the management of Tata's and Larsen & Toubro looking at it from that point of view, that if we can finish this project 4 months earlier, it is beneficial to all. And I think that sort of an approach will help. I know most of you are from public sector companies, and then you are very rigidly bound to certain rules and regulations. How can you do such things? There may be a question. But I do believe that Larsen & Toubro is like a public sector. We don't have a family controlling, and all of us have grown in the company from the, you can say, from lowest levels, used our knowledge. We got trained in the company, we expanded our knowledge, we had international comparisons, and we have been able to achieve results which are comparable to sometimes the best in the world. And I think this is not a unique example. It is possible, and it is being done in certain public sector companies and organizations, as I already mentioned, in space and atomic energy also, in which both Larsen & Toubro has been a collaborator and a partner for the national mission in these areas. So I would like to say Tata's had such great vision and great zeal to perform things, and in an internationally comparable way with benchmarking. I think that is one of the essences of leadership, what they have to provide. You provide a vision. I think Jrd Tata, Ratan Tata provide that vision. His project for nano, everybody knows, it is his idea, but he really felt honestly that these poor people who are traveling in a motorcycle or a scooter should do in a much safer way at a price which they can afford. and it produced world's smallest car. Even if there were problems, I think the very idea is going to be a success, is something which will bring India to the topmost level, even in a field in which the Americans, the Japanese, the Germans have performed better. And I only want to say that we have to excel in that area as well, as India. Then I would like to say in the atomic energy sphere also, where we have been an outcast for more than 30 years. And we have managed to perform something very unique due to the vision of Dr. Bhabha and people following him. And Dr. Anil Kakodkar has done extremely well for the fast breeder reactor program. And I think things are moving in such a direction. I have belief and strong belief at that Indian entities who are serving Nuclear Power Corporation and Atomic Energy Department are capable of producing all that 50,000 megawatts, 60,000 megawatts, which are to be produced. And I think with the nuclear deal, it is not that it is the best deal or anything like that. We have sacrificed a little bit in terms of probably our freedom to, in the military sense. But I think it's not a great sacrifice if you consider the freedom we have got to deal with everyone in the world and get to solve our power problem to some extent, which is so chronic. So again, all these are public sector undertakings. SAIL, for example, in steel, can learn a lot of things from Tata Steel. And I think they are also progressing in the right direction. BHEL, NTPC, there are so many public sector organizations who are doing very well. But what they probably lack, from my experience in Larsen Toubro, is that they should be paid adequately for what they are delivering. I think Larsen Toubro, even though it is like public sector, because it is in private sector, the board has full powers to decide on such things. Comparing with private sector, we are taking care of our staff, their PEC visits, whatever is, not that we pay very well, that we exceed many others, but it is sufficient to make sure that people will not be indulging in malpractices just to survive. Sometimes our low-level people are paid so lowly that it is impossible to survive, and that also induces people to go to the wrong direction. I think even the government servants, I think as an MP, Dr. Kasturirangan is hearing my remarks. I personally feel, if you follow the Singapore example, the ministers are paid very well. There is no incentive for them to be corrupt. And they demand absolute honesty. And I think we have to get back into that mode. But of course, we cannot simply jump at and increase the salaries overnight. There are certain things happening already through pay commissions and all that. You have to bring certain parity between private and public sector in terms of emoluments and how you reward people who is contributing to the success. Then, of course, in sports field, we are not such a great sporting nation when you compare with even recent successes of China and earlier, even smaller countries, how they have performed in sports field. We are just beginners, and Abhinav Bindra has shown that it is possible, even in rifle shooting. And of course, in cricket, we have come to a feeling that we are in the top 3 nations based on our performances, and potential to be number 1 is still great. So everywhere like this, we have potential to be number 1. I learned from Sathya Sai Baba, where we have also worked many projects for his organization, that unity and purity is there in a mission. There is automatically divinity supporting. It is not that it is by choice, or it is also based on whatever you may call as your karma, or whatever it is. Divinity automatically supports, and there is a success. And some of our projects which we did for Sathya Sai Baba, the hospital here, Puttaparthi, the airport in 3 months, incredible jobs. Villages in Anantapur district, 750 of them got water supply like in cities, but in 18 months. But Andhra Pradesh government has to do such a program. They have tried, but even 6 months, not much progress has been made because the system. is such a problem. Whereas here, the villagers believed this water is coming and being given by Satya Sai Trust, and there is everybody allowed us to plow through the fields, to lay the pipelines. We did treatment plants, we did everything. There was no obstruction because the purpose for which it is being done is understood by all the people. And they never objected. They never even made claims if even the crop is spoiled. And we went forward and compensated them to some extent to be fair to them. So I think what I am emphasizing is the basic value system and the basic ethical behavior of leadership is much more important than what we realize. The attributes of people who are managers, who are reporting to the leadership, is much more important that they are doing it honestly and sincerely and for a particular cause, and that they are doing for the benefit of everybody. Then automatically there is a better chance for success than trying to make shortcuts. So with these few examples, what I would like to say is how to go forward in companies or organizations like ours. What is the formula for success? If I just give our example of Larsen & Toubro, every time there is a leadership change, there is you can say a congregation of the company's leadership, maybe 100 people. And the new chief executive or chairman will propose to the fellow managers, fellow leaders, this is what I think we should do for the company in the next 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, whatever strategic plan means 5 years in our company. And then there is a vision statement discussed. Once again, there may be a vision statement earlier, but a statement is discussed and discussed in such depth, each word is weighed. Then the reason for that is we want it to be a shared vision. Not just the vision of just the chairman, not the vision of just one chief executive, but the combined, you can say, effort of all people to define a vision. And then later on, we come down to missions, statements for each of the business divisions or businesses we are in. And we found this way, we are able to align most of our managers and leaders in the same direction as the leadership has designed. And the leadership in this case, in a way, collective. And for public sector, it is much more natural that we can do this in spite of whatever restrictions you may have with all the political factors that may be there. But I do believe, as Mr. G.V. Ramakrishna, once SEBI chairman, he was also chairman of the Disinvestment Commission. He has given a report, but of course it has not seen the light of day in terms of implementation. He suggested as a structure for public sector, that it should be somewhat like Larsen & Toubro, where the boards and the respective managements will have a lot more freedom than day-to-day interference from the ministry and from political leadership, because that is what vitiates the atmosphere. And then you give a lot more emphasis on the value system. So we define what values we would like to, you can say, nourish in the company. And that has helped us very much. And in fact, it has to be overemphasized now, because that is what makes a difference between, I believe, a company like ours and others who are just pursuing profitability only. The profitability is important. Return on capital employed is important. How you manage your cash, all that is very much important. Ultimately, it is reflected in certain way. But you have to also have it to be anchored in value system and ethics, because that is what helped us. And we went through in various divisions of Larsen & Toubro, various businesses. We have now actually internal companies which are about 12 in number. Each is like an individual company, but for outsiders, it is same Larsen & Toubro. But each individual business will also have its own such discussion for a mission, for what has to be done. But the value system is discussed across the company. And that value system we followed more or less somewhat like what you learn in behavioral science as octapase culture. There is openness, confrontation, trust, authenticity as individual values, and then proactivity, collaboration, extension, all these as a group activity. So once you have, and also if you look at our own, you can say, old value system, and what you hear from Ramayana, Mahabharata, and so many other stories we have in our own history, it gives a value system that can sustain the company to move forward. And from one generation to another generation, then it can be passed on. This is a much more sustaining value, and therefore we have emphasized the value system and ethical practices. We are given a lot of importance. And to some extent, Tata's is a good organization which has followed such an approach. We have also been faced with sometimes, you can say, difficult choices. In our business of, let us say, project and construction, there is a lot of corruption. I don't think I'm making any secret, I'm telling you, because everybody knows about it. But we have gone about in such a way that we have gone as a policy. There is enough clientele in this country who will also want to deal with honest contractors and honest practices, and they are prepared to give a bonus if you do it faster, and if it is better quality, they are prepared to encourage. Private sector business was quite substantial for us initially, but now with infrastructure increasing, we have been able to balance more or less 50-50% of public sector work and private sector work. And I must say we have mostly avoided or you can say reduce the impact of corruption in our business activity in project and construction. And that is so with other businesses. So I would only say that it is not impossible even in an environment which rates India as one of the most corrupt countries. It is still possible to do more honest work. And if you have to pay to political parties for election, Tatas have shown the way that they have a trust and they discuss openly and give to all the political parties based on certain formula. So if you are able to do that and everybody else in the political establishment knows that this is the only way we can deal with L&T, Tatas, it will be accepted. It is only with those people who are subject to pressures are falling for that. If you are able to stand up as a leadership, no, this is our culture and value and we will stick to that. And in that case, you cannot afford to make an exception. And if you make an exception, you are in trouble and you have to repeat those exceptions. So,
from the beginning or after certain years?
No, right from the beginning, Ho Larsen, Mr. Tubro, but at the same time, I must confess that we can't say that we have always been so straightforward that we never gave any bribe. I'll be wrong in saying that, but those are such small scale at lower levels. It is not as a policy it is done. But at the same time, even at lower levels, if you have the leadership at those levels who will be steadfast, it can be taken care of. For example, in a site, we are supposed to provide a reasonable accommodation for poor workmen, really. And by ourselves, we feel there should be a reasonable accommodation. And even though it is not air-conditioned, even with the asbestos sheet or fiber-reinforced sheets or whatever, we provided good sanitation, good facilities, good food, but a very cheap food. If you organize, they are much more satisfied. And it is necessary for our own business to get better productivity and to give them such training even in non-professional areas, but also value system to them also. And then they continue to work with us with satisfaction. So I feel, but why I cited that is some labor inspector, somebody, he will create a demand, otherwise you may lose 3 or 4 months of time and you can create a problem. But in such situations, yes, some compromises have been made. Even in L&T, it's not that we are all absolutely, we can say honestly, that we never bribed anybody. But I am saying this because it can only be an improvement from what it was. So if you have such a, you can say, direction and ethics and value system, you can pursue that and you will succeed. And our example is that even financially and as an organization, quality organization, timely completion, all those values, safety, all this if we can manage, doing within our own principles has proven to us that it is possible to survive even in an environment which is surrounded by so many unethical practices. But by giving such an example, others can follow. And that is only a gradual way of transforming the environment that makes India to reach its potential. I think that is what I would like to emphasize, because this is our experience. And whenever we have competed with certain companies, it's a hard-fought competition, and sometimes it so happens that the difference is so little and there are so many factors come into play. You're getting the order or not getting the order depends on so many factors. And sometimes we have found it advantageous to tell our customer, well, in this particular aspect, I think it is good you give to so-and-so, this order to so-and-so, even though we would like to get this order ourselves, but we understand you should give it to the other party, who is our competitor. And we have done that, but that has given such a message to our customer. Next time he feels it is, we must compensate them. They did a fine job, tried their best to be competitive. They're not competitive, but there are certain values we can afford to pay a little more and get the result of faster completion of jobs, a better quality job. And we could create such an impression. And even for the industry, we had participated very closely by interacting with those competitors, so-called competitors, to say that for the country, we are all in one community to produce these projects in a short time and to write quality. And we should work together and have right policies in an area where everybody thinks a contractor, a builder is the most corrupt in this country. And we have to change that impression. And we have followed certain methods to try to reform ourselves as a community. And when you take such a leadership role, your suggestions are more acceptable. And in fact, even those people who are subject to those corruptive tendencies are actually, because of the pressure of their survival, as you have seen in the case of even Satyam, that they succumb to that. But by seeing so many examples of people ultimately getting ruined because of such practices, that will be a lesson for future for others, that it's safer and is also better for the organizations to follow ethical practices. Then after this vision, mission, value system, we make a perspective plan, a strategic plan, and we subject it to a lot of discussion. And then what are the actions that we have to be done in such an organized way with a business plan? And even if it means some sort of a setback in financial terms, we pursued that very much. When nobody was ready to give us jobs for cooling towers, very high, tall structures, you might have seen quite a few of them, 130 meters, 140 meters tall, 100 meters diameter, but the wall thickness of that concrete shell is only 150 millimeters to 6 inches to 9 inches, in that range. So it is actually a thin shell. If you expand or compare with an eggshell, which you know it is fragile, I think the eggshell will be 3 times thicker than this natural draft cooling tower. But how to construct accurately and to make the construction with certain high quality in concrete and reinforcement and so many things, we were to be brought in by CEA. They wrote a letter to us, there's only Gammon India doing this type of work, we want you to do. And then we tender, we will be easily beaten in price. And we realized that. So the first job we took with some German and Austrian experience added together, it cost more money. But then we took a deliberate decision, instead of doing R&D, we take this expertise from outsiders, we quote with practically no profit or low profit, and we took that job in Neyveli. We built 4 cooling towers. It set up an example that cooling towers can be built in a much better way. Instead of their collapsing after 10, 15 years, we can do it as well as anywhere else in the world. including thermal design, structural design, construction methodology, and all the aspects. So why I gave that example is, when you are not competent, you have to invest in technology development. Of course, through R&D and certain planned expenditure you can do. Sometimes in type of work which we are in, we have followed certain methods of taking a contract as an experiment and at low price, and we pursued those objectives. Okay, in the overall perspective, 1 or 2 such jobs, even losing a little money, but we are learning a new technology and moving forward has helped us. But this requires a lot of strength in the leadership to say, yes, we will do it this way. We could even convince our board when we followed such policies. In fact, when we were to take up road work on a big scale for the Golden Quadrilateral, India had never any scope for contractors to do it in a certain mechanized way. And it is nothing great, but first time you have to do, you don't even qualify. And the World Bank gives loan, they will only say that only people who have done so many kilometers of road in this fashion in such a short time will qualify. So we decided to go in for a joint venture with a company called Colas in France. And then after all the discussions, and we quote 50-50 joint venture partnership, then when we were about to get the order, they say, no, we are not interested in this joint venture because there's so much of taxation, it's not worth doing this. Then as a leadership, we have to contact that French company's top leadership and say, we can understand your predicament if you tell us more clearly what you expect from this joint venture. If you are doing such a job in Europe, in construction, what profit do you make? I happened to ask these questions, and then they found they tender with 5 or 6% profit, and they're very happy if they get 2 or 3% profit at the end of the job. So such thin margins. Then we told, you're a 50-50 joint venture partner. If we give you 1% as the total contract value, which is half of 2% you will make as profit, tax-free, it should satisfy you. Then they said, yes, we can discuss. How will you make it? India is so strong in its bureaucracy, this will not be permitted. Then we said, yes, we can make it possible, but then we'll give you as a technical fees. And you provide us 20 man-months of expertise where we lack. But you stay with us as a joint venture partner so that we get qualified and we get a job. And with one job, work that way, they are quite happy. We included 20% tax in that, and we managed that job so well, and we learned on the job. So many deputies were developed, and we became the top road builder of this country. And 13% of the National Highway Program we have executed, and apart from that, we went into public-private partnership, and we did a lot of work to improve the quality of roads. And if you, even today we have so many bad roads. It is possible, not only for our company, now seeing us, there are so many contractors have become expert in using this mechanization and expertise of technical nature, which made India a strong country in building roads. In building anything we can, we were in nuclear power plant construction. We have been given this opportunity because we are going for good quality, timely completion. I remember Dr. Kakodkar, and before that, Dr. Srinivasan used to say it is taking such a long time, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years to complete a project. But really, it was not due to only construction, but the whole system of approvals because of safety aspects that it was taking. Then we took an initiative, we will join hands with you. We should jointly find a solution how to build this faster and to world standards. And Parapur, we could achieve it in just 4 years. And we know we can even do faster. So if you are able to build nuclear power plants faster, including supply of equipment for this project, I think we can contribute substantially for making contribution to the power development of India. And we proved, and other contractors are following suit. And once Larsen & Toubro finishes in 4 years, HCC does in 5 years, there are so many others coming in, and there's a benchmark set in already. I think this benchmark and comparing with international best practices and learning, that is one of the responsibilities of the leadership, that the technology development goes on. That is the most important part which we lack because we are not exposed with international competition earlier. On the other hand, the other most important aspect is finding talent and nurturing them. The HRT practices, what we have introduced in construction business of Larsen & Toubro, absolutely unique, because we cannot employ all of them workers as our own employees. We have to find ways and means of having piece rate worker subcontractors who will work for us in the way we want, but we pay them only on the work output, and they pay on a daily wage basis to the workers. But found a system in such a way that we can keep training them, their productivity improves, and then ultimately the benefit comes to us in a way that we can manage with much less number of people and mechanization. So leadership can find solutions. Why I'm saying this all is to say for every situation, if in construction it can be done with totally 90% unskilled people, I think it can be done in much more organized businesses more easily, is what I am trying to convey to you. And we have followed as a consequence of 2020 developed nation sort of target for the country given by Dr. Abdul Kalam, we followed in our own sphere what we should do for 2020 as a perspective plan, and then strategic plan, and then how to enter new businesses and get out of old businesses which are not profitable or which are not anymore competitive for us, and others can do it equally well. And that is what we learned out of GE's practices. And GE is also a conglomerate like L&T, so many businesses, but they've decided that if you are not either number one or number two, they exit that business. And so we followed somewhat similar ideas and said, if the business is not contributing to 500 crores per annum, we exit that business. And there is, in construction, we are spending something like 350,000 crores of rupees every year in India. Even if we get 1% of our business with our practices, we'll have enough business. There's no problem. So our business potential is so large, and I think it will apply to most of the other spheres. It is so large, but we have to find funding, we have to find practices of how to acquire technology, how you develop talent, train them, and then allow them by decentralizing all the decision making. And that is what has made more and more leadership available to us as we grow as a company. In fact, as has been somewhat clear from the introduction about me, it is not my achievement. It is I was there for 43 years, but when I was director and in charge as a business head for project business, what used to be only about 15-20% of the whole L&T's business is today about 75% is construction and projects. And it is visible to everyone that L&T builds much faster, higher quality, and how we are able to get 30-35% annual growth profitably. And continuously for every year, Larsen & Toubro has been paying dividend higher than the previous year, and consistently. So I can only say, if you can take all your people together in a united fashion and with a common goal, I think, and find solutions in a task force approach, the leadership can achieve results which even in our Indian circumstances sometimes look not easily possible. And that is our experience, and I therefore feel we should give a lot more importance to ethical aspects and value system. And I already mentioned about unity, purity, and which automatically brings in divinity. And I think we should go back to our own values through the various stories which our young children even get educated, because that is how we learn. For example, in a management course, we were asked in Mahabharata, who is the best manager? You please evaluate all the people who have come across. There are so many great characters, and it was thoroughly analyzed, because ultimately we came to know the real best manager was Dharmaraja, not Bhima or Arjuna or Karna or Krishna. Of course, we left alone is a person who is divine additional strengths or qualities. But when we analyze each individual character, then we found ultimately the person who has achieved those results, which he has set for himself as a king. He ultimately became the king, but he has managed to take his brothers unitedly. They are all specialists and best in their own business. He is not that great in those areas, but he's a generalist, but managed unity and made them get motivated to perform what is required. And Mahabharata story tells us that he is the most successful manager after all. And that sort of analysis and examples are plenty from our own, you can say, old literature and value system. And I believe very strongly that we should give a little more importance to training our people and educating them and these aspects, even if we are doing business something quite different from all these moral values. So I just noted down some quotes which I think are very important for you to at least get a grasp of. It is a sign of troubled times. This is given by one Michael. When the concept of pressure becomes an acceptable excuse for ethical shortcuts and moral shortcomings, pressures are just temptations in disguise. It has never been acceptable to give into temptation. Ethics is about the way things ought to be done, not about the way things are. When it comes to ethics, motive is very important. A person of character does the right thing for the right reason. Compliance is about what we must do. Ethics is about what we should do. Ethical people often do more than the law requires and less than it allows. The area of discretion between legal must and moral should tests our character. Noble talk and framed ethics statements are no substitute for principled conduct. The test is doing the right thing. So I think it's an important quote. I thought I should place it before you. The next one from Mahatma Gandhi. We do not need to proselyte either by our speech or by our writing. We can only do so really with our lives. Let our lives be open books for all to study. Ziegler, ability can take you to the top, but it takes character to keep you there. John Wooden, be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your character is what you really are, and while your reputation is merely what others think you are. Albert Einstein, if A is a success in life, then A equals X plus Y plus Z. Work is X, Y is play, Z is keeping your mouth shut. That is Albert Einstein. You listen more rather than talk too much, I think that's the message. The personal power that comes from principle-centered living is the power of a self-aware, knowledgeable, proactive individual, unrestricted by the attitudes, behaviors, and actions of others, or by many of the circumstances and environmental influences that limit our people. That is Stephen Covey. And another quote from him, while you can think in terms of efficiency in dealing with time, principle-centered person thinks in terms of effectiveness in dealing with people. Attitude is an important part of foundation upon which we build productive life. A good attitude produces good results. A fair attitude, poor results. A poor attitude, poor results. We each shape our own life, and the shape of it is determined largely by our own attitude. Russell Ballard. And then the final one, finish each day and be done with it. You have done what you could. Some blunders and absurdities no doubt creep in. Forget them as soon as you can. Tomorrow is a new day. Begin it well and serenely and with too high a spirit to be cumbered with your old nonsense. So these are some quotes which I have brought in. We have dealt with many of the corporations which you had or you are part of, including such success stories as Reliance, but it has got a different side to it also. Birlas, Tatas, you name anybody, because of our business is so varied. We had come across very great leaderships in some of these leaders, and we always imbibed something new which we should emulate. and we should learn. And we have hundreds of stories because we have done, at least I've been associated in a business in which we have done 4,000 projects. And each one is important for our customer, and they are headed by very top people, and they are top leaders. In their own way, they are all successful. And we have learned quite a bit from them, and we continue to learn. If we have to progress as a country and reach those objectives, to stand in the Committee of Nations as one of the top economic superpowers, I think there is no other way than every one of us trying to be the best in business, as close to number one or number two in our own respective spheres, with proper value system backing it, and with strategic plans, business plans and budgets, and what are the things which you all know. And if you can pursue that in a dogged fashion, with in a way believing in what you are saying, and you should be genuine when dealing with people. If you are genuine and you sacrifice sometimes what you think is right you should do for the society, then I think the reciprocity from the your colleagues who are the subordinates for the time being, they will become so very convinced of what you are trying to show them and preach them, that they will be ultimately be good leaders, will take this country forward to a great heights. Thank you very much. But now I look forward to responding to your questions. I hope I have not taken too much time. Yeah, okay. Sorry for exceeding my own time. But you know, it is a freewheeling talk. I have not given you something very new which you did not know.
I have one question.
Yes, please. Yes.
What is the difference between a leader and a manager?
A manager is getting results which a leader sets for him according to certain plan. But the leader is thinking in a larger canvas, and is not just that particular project or particular objective, but in an overall sense, the leader has to think in a broader canvas. I think he is part of the whole system. In fact, we cannot think if you are a leader of Larsen & Toubro, it is only for making profit for Larsen & Toubro. We have to think about the country, and not only the country, about the future of the world and such things, and take such commitments for yourself, that I lead this company in this direction. I think that is the way I would put it, that the leader is beyond just getting targets and achieving them, because that is the role of a manager. A leadership is much more anchored in ethics and values and beliefs and vision, rather than just achieving some results.
Larsen & Toubro supposed to be that earlier the company going for high technology jobs, but now diversifying to cements and all. This is supposed to be a low technology. Is it the operation strategy or making the business expansion?
Yeah, cement business has been sold. You are aware that Birlas have bought over that, called Ultratech Cement. We are not in cement anymore, but we consume a lot of cement. We make cement machinery. So we pursue the business of selling cement technology, cement machinery, but constructing cement plants has also come down to some extent. We are graduated to, we are no more investing in cement as a business. But we have taken decisions on many such businesses which were successful to some extent, but relatively less successful because of environment or various other factors. And we, even though we are the largest producer of cement, more than ACC at one stage, then we decided to sell. And when we decided to sell, there were so many problems. Ultimately, we have used that as an opportunity to ring fence our company, to see that nobody can take over this company. And 20% of the shareholding today, which we bought from earlier Reliance and later on Birlas, is owned by our staff and employees. So it is truly, you can say, people's own company. But that is, and we have a lot of shareholding which belongs to common people, 400,000 shareholders. So, and together with the financial institutions, it constitutes more than 54-55% of the stake, including the financial institutions from abroad and all, they are in a minority. So we can take it forward in this structure of a professional organization which is becoming an Indian multinational. We have taken it, we are like BHEL, but we are in private sector. We have a little more freedom.
Sir,
Well, that's what I also hear, but I talked to our chairman. We have a company called L&T Infotech in the Infotech business, but more related to engineering. And he had visions of matching with Infosys and Wipros and all that. And therefore, well, it was a good match, he thought, because the promoter has only 8% stake. And probably we have a chance to catch up by this inorganic growth, as they call it. But we made a mistake in the sense we bought at 162 rupees, and today it's probably 40 rupees or less. But at the same time, if this is stabilizing and there is some way can be found where probably L&T can synergize. Satyam is too big compared to L&T Infotech. So I don't believe we can take over that. We can only work together in such a way that having a stake there. It is possible, we believe, but well, sometimes we make mistakes too.
Sir, I am Ramdas from Titan. Sir, we all of us know it is your vision really brought this ECC to such a greater heights in the world. I just want to ask one question on nurturing the talent with more than 4,000 projects. And
but in a course of 35 years, let us say. 60 years the company existed, but the first 20 years is very little projects.
So
Yeah.
what type of leadership challenge you have faced in nurturing the talent? Especially my question is restricted to, because the project-based organization,
Yeah.
you are having the projects from north, south, east, moving the key talent,
Yeah.
because they have their families, they have their own commitments, but they are the best of your employees. Especially when you have brought such a big success, you would have some unique secret.
Yeah.
How you have really
I think we thought about it and had an organization structure which is suitable for this type of business. And we regionalized the day-to-day operations and the centralized the strategic planning, technology development, and certain other functions, so that we have profit centers at different levels. The big project is a profit center. The next level, many projects together in a region, we call it profit center and a growth center. So they have to keep growing, and in that region they know that business well. And then at the head office, we call it a strategic center. We find the right strategy, technology development, adding people and finding talent, training them. We spend more time on that rather than day-to-day operations. But we have a unique IT system which can tell at any moment by press of a button through computer system, we can say this job, what it will end up as a profit or loss, or what are the problems, what are the variances from the original estimate, and what is the corrective action required. It comes out through our system. And so even though there are so many projects, 400 projects currently every year being executed, we are able to keep a tab on what is happening, even centrally, even though we have decentralized all decision making, procurement, even though we give policies for supply chain management and IT system helps them. Tendering system takes the same data from the purchase people, accounting system, job cost system, HR system, plant and machinery management system. They are all individual systems, but they are all integrated on a common platform, so that from the same database, they will also get an output which is relevant to them, and they can use that as a correction tool for improving our results. So, but at the same time, I must say we used to communicate a lot. This communicating with the dispersed community is a hell of a problem. We used to make video films on some of the projects to be shown to various sites. And whenever we go, it was a policy to visit these sites even if we don't contribute very much, but we contact people, give them what are the company's policies, and keep interacting with them, understand their problems, and try to find solutions. So this interaction with the staff and workmen not employed by us directly, has helped us. But I think we cannot anymore have the so-called subcontractor approach. At least 50% of the people should be employed. But that is because of the laws of the country, which if you employ, you cannot sack them. That sort of a situation we don't want to be in. And I think the government has to think with the construction industry to find the right solution to give a security for these people. But at the same time, they cannot be transferred from Delhi to Madras, and we have to find solutions. But there are solutions which can find ways of paying them with an incentive, but with a basic minimum wage. So HR policies are very important.
Your accomplishment of the career, is it more due to your managerial capability or due to the leadership qualities?
Well, I think others should judge me, but on the other hand, I can say, I think my motivation is much more from country's perspective. I've been exposed in my younger days. I've been in Germany and both parts, East and West, and it has given me a very good platform to feel why our country is not like this. And when I came back, and I was employed by Larsen Toubro by that time, after the scholarship, when I came back, I tried to benchmark ourselves. If they can do, the Germans can do, we should be able to do. That is one of the motivating factors. The other factor is, of course, we have concentrated on all that I explained to you, but a lot more monitoring, because in all our projects, planning, scheduling, and monitoring is very important. The project management, construction management, those are the things we have developed good systems and good practices and trained people to use that. I think that is one of the contributing factors. But more important, that we were comparing ourselves. If today Vinci, a French company, is the world's biggest construction company, and L&T comes according to the listing probably 54 or so in the world, but that is because of some distortion in the dollar-rupee rates are not really purchase parity in a way. So you can say even then we will be 20th or 24th in that range. So how to reach the top level? You must have technology, you must have capacity to organize, your organization structure, all these things have to develop. And we had a great advantage in training a lot of people. We recruit, even just for the construction business, at least 450 engineers every year and train them. And we have developed programs with IIT, Madras and Delhi, to develop postgraduates. We pay for the training. We make the syllabus in such a way they become ultimately very useful for us. Some managerial aspects, certain other aspects which IITs do not cover, we provide the faculty, and we have a joint program. They are happy, we are happy, and the employees are very happy because they get an MTech degree while getting paid during studies. So we found such solutions. And this organization development as a program we sustained for more than 25 years in the construction division. And we keep on interacting with them and with task force approach find solutions to the various problems which are unique for our own country.
Sir, my question is a very fundamental question. I am Prakash Sahu from RBI. You talked about the value system and ethics, and you stated that it is the ability which takes us to the top, but it is the character that keeps us there.
Sustain.
So, individuals like Ratan Tata or Narayan Murthy, they are responsible, Dhirubhai Ambani, they are responsible for taking their organization to the ultimate heights. And similarly, individuals like say Nick Gleason or Harshad Mehta and at present system, they can bring the institutions
down.
100 years of glory, the institution can come under. Now this ethics, the value systems, like say Satyam Jayate, or there is no dharma greater than adherence to truth. And these things, these are the values which we have imbibed during our childhood.
Yeah.
Now my question is that how do
I think it's much more not teaching but practicing and showing an example. The leadership and the managers have to be aligned to do it in the proper way. And if that becomes a practice and culture of the company, then it will be accepted. It is that thrust which is needed. And I think human resource development and spending more time on such subjects, communication skills, and such things included, achievement, motivation, what are the values. We keep talking about that and debating them. And I think ultimately when you're practicing, it gets accepted. And that is the only way. It's a long...
In this question, if a person has grown by reputation rather than by character to the top,
Yeah.
what way you can hold it? Is it right, sir?
My question was very simple. These are the values which we learn at schools, and there are basic values which are ingrained in our system. I think it stops with the maximum input is at the childhood level. Up to class 5 or during our primary education, we imbibe values by the teachers, by our parents.
But you have to practice them. That is what is the most important part.
Let's try and have some order here, please. So what we'll do is, if you have a question, kindly give a hint to the chairperson by raising your hand. We'll have a different structure from tomorrow. It will be much more effective.
Yeah.
Just bear with us for today. So please give a hint to the chairperson if you have a question by raising your hand, and please wait for the mic. Yes.
I'm RB Srivastava from DRDO. Thanks for giving us a good account of all the aspirations and achievements of L&T. Now, I hope you'll agree with me that the things like the technology development and innovations are also an integral part of the organization when you are thinking of going ahead. I would like to know how much the emphasis and investment has gone towards R&D part of it, and the other part is the self-reliance by way of indigenization. How much account?
Yeah, and that is where I try to give some examples for our business in construction and projects. We have done in construction methods and practices which are age-old in India, which are labor-intensive. We try to mechanize much more. And in design and engineering, of course, we gave a lot of importance. Actually, I came from a design engineer background. And so when the leader himself understands the importance of technology and the engineering design and saving material and saving effort, if a thrust is given in that direction, by having, of course, certain research programs, even now I feel we don't spend enough. The Japanese, for example, in construction, spend the maximum in research and development. What is research and development in construction? It is improving the practices. If you take a car, in 7 hours a car comes out with the raw material with so many things doing in a mass production basis. But same principle can be applied to construction. But it can never be as perfect as in a factory. But the principles are applicable, and we have shown that every alternate day one floor can be built in housing projects. And in those designs we'll have less cement, less concrete, less steel and less formwork and no bricks than any other design. So there are methods of mass producing for at least 50–60% of urban housing. We can produce them much cheaper. After all, if nano can be produced, if the real thought is given, effort is put in engineering to develop a product in construction, we can probably achieve a possibility of housing of millions at an affordable price. So if you say nano is 1 lakh car, you can have 5 lakhs house or a flat for urban people. But then it is not with the current method of approach that you can achieve that. You can't have brickwork and labor-intensive methods and still make that possible. Nowhere else in the world it happened. But in the Second World War, after that, when the Germans and Europeans started changing the methods to produce them fast, they found ways and means of doing that very effectively and fast using industrialized methods of construction. Country needs to introduce such things. We have done for example, in Tisco on housing, 900 flats were built in 18 months at the rate of 3.5 flats average per day. But it is supposed to be worker quarters, and I know the reaction of even employees who are at a higher level, a staff position, they said this is good house. But the finishes for a staff housing can be somewhat different, but can still be very affordable, because here now our whole industry is working on so many agencies and everyone adding profit to profit. We have to find ways and means of mass producing houses or flats, or even rural housing. Some of these concepts can be developed, but that is where we need research, not competing with the United States or Germany in something which is not relevant to us. I think we try to talk in our fora, but it never gets easily practiced, because we have 6 lakh contractors in this country. 28,000 somewhat reasonable size, but all of them are unprofessional, unorganized sector, disorganized sector, except some 30-40 companies in the country who are totally insufficient to make a change perceptible in this sector. But we have to make attempts, and that is where the leadership comes. At the national level, at certain other levels of various companies, we have to keep training and orienting them to a different way of approach in technology development. In this sector, that is very important, and applying that and give examples of where you have done which can convince people this is equally good house at cheaper cost.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I am Seshagir Rao from ISRO. The leadership from L&T, as a general example, I would like to know, when they take up projects for state governments where many politicians are involved, and when they take up projects for science and technology, the strategy point of view, do they have any differences in approaches?
No, now we have an approach that we will not take for civil engineering type of project, not less than 100 crores. So that eliminates a lot of projects where this is much more problem, and there are other small contractors to do that. When it is big projects, for example, we started with Bangalore Airport. We completely changed the thinking of the government, and the policy had to be changed. Airport Authority of India was the only organization permitted to run airports. But then the law was changed. It took 4 years for us to establish a new system. State governments, Airport Authority of India, Civil Aviation Ministry, Finance Ministry, Law Ministry, and of course parliamentarians, ministers, and Prime Minister. We have tackled all of them, but we established that it can be done in a different way. And Bangalore was the first example. There may be comparisons now, which airport is better, Hyderabad, Bangalore, but Bombay and Delhi are also coming up. All 4 of them are constructed by Larsen & Toubro. And why we have done that? The first time we entered, we felt the need. We built in Abu Dhabi 30 years ago an airport terminal, which is high class. But no Indian airport could anywhere come near that, because there was no importance given from the country's point of view that we need good airports. Singapore realized it much earlier. And Singapore is one of the best airports. If you benchmark, Incheon in Korea is the best airport. Next is Singapore in the world. And so we had set ourselves a target, we must have quality airports. And of course it has to be with public policy. But then it has given us a sustainable business. Every project now, for example, Bombay and Delhi, the modernization, new terminals, each is 9,000 to 10,000 crores contract for us. But turnkey, including passenger boarding bridges, baggage handling systems, electronics, IT systems for running an airport, and of course construction is part of it. And in fact, construction is only 20% of it. But the balance, the construction division has collected people, including some expatriates initially, for the technology part of it. So we have entered into such areas which the country needs: ports, airports, roads and bridges. We were never in these lines 15 years ago or 20 years ago. But that is strategic planning. And if you look at the volume of money that is going to be spent, half of the construction is in house building. And nearly 2 lakh crores of rupees are being spent. Everything can't be constructed by L&T. Even less than 1% is good volume of business to any contractor. But then it has to be done efficiently, quality, time, safety, and then of course ultimately it has to be built very fast and to be acceptable to the owners. But if we can arrive at a system based on all our analysis of various experiences, various practices, I think India can find the right solutions. And that is where I strongly believe that India has poised without any doubt, in spite of all the problems, if we don't have two major disturbances through problems of defense, we should move forward without any difficulty. By 2020, 2050, we'll be recognized with the rest of the world as a really powerful nation.
Shinal from Hindustan Petroleum. My question is, one of the challenges to leadership in a company like L&T could be ensuring quality. That too at remote sites when much of the labor is from subcontracting.
Yeah.
And ethical practices and those come into question. So,
No,
how do you address that?
I think it's a very good question, very important question. We keep training, and even if they are not our own workers, we have got training schools for workmen when they are not our workmen, our subcontractors' workmen. We have training for supervisors and quality assurance system, quality control system in an honest way. And even if the customer is not pointing out, our internal system will say, remove this and reconstruct. And that basic value system was established even 30, 40 years ago by the Danish foremen and type of people who are associated in the company. And that continues to some extent, gets watered down to some extent, which worries us. But we have to keep training people and keep sticking to the policy of high quality. Then that is what is superior to others. And that the leadership should support very strongly. And in fact, we have not only developed our own training schools, we established in Hyderabad what is called National Academy of Construction to train construction workmen for everybody. But we are only a small part of it. All the Builders Association contributed. At that time, the Chief Minister, Chandrababu Naidu, took a lot of interest, and there was one direction. And then later on, Dr. Rajshekar Reddy took interest, but he wanted training only for workmen as the focus, not the training contractors, training engineers and construction method practices. He didn't emphasize that because this has got a certain advantage. Politically, a lot of people come from villages, get trained, and they earn enough skills to go to Middle East and earn more money, and he becomes popular. But the problem there is only 30,000 workmen every year are being trained, but he wants 600,000 for one state of Andhra Pradesh. Imagine you replicate it in many states. So many farmers who have to change business of their profession to something. Construction is again an intermediate phase. Then industrialized industries require a lot of trained people. We have to gradually take this. There is no shortcut.
So I have a question. Yeah. I'm Brigadier Kapoor from the Army.
Excuse me, Brigadier Kapoor. I don't know who is now asking. Okay, so can you please help us have some order because the mic is here. Can we go to him and then come to you?
Yeah. I mean, listening to your lecture about the vision sharing, value system, and strategizing is very important. But in a more practical level, when you go to do this at the top level, it is not one person who makes the decision, a group of people. So one question is the diversity among these people. The value system of these diverse people can lead to problems. That's one thing. And the other thing is that how do you stay there? Like we've been emphasizing so much on ethical practices. But one is to imbibe them and stay them there. I think, how do they? There must be a lot of conflicts.
Yeah, of course. In my own team, which was, I used to call a cricket team, vice presidents of 11 people. And each one is good in their own way. In their respective positions, they have competition. And sometimes conflicts arise. But that we have to manage and say, and do it in such a way that there is unity. I gave a lot of importance to unity. because if we get lost in this, and no politics. And I think that is an important point I'm saying. Politics will be easily created. We have to, that you are impartial, you will do whatever is right for the company and for that division. You want everyone to come up. You have to create such an environment. And then, if there are problems, you have to debate in a group. And I think that is what helped us. That we don't put it under the carpet, we allow it should be brought out. There will be some hard words sometimes, but you have to balance it, you have to manage it. I think every organization has got this. But then, we should not allow other influences to make them get divided. Then it's a problem. We are safer as a group compared to the other divisions of Larsen & Toubro, if you stick together. And probably I spent a lot of time on the unity, and then longer perspective of thinking, that each one has got a, and we have now in ECC, what it used to be called, 5 different companies. And there are 5 chief executives, and you can call them as good as managing directors. So 5 of them have got opportunity. And out of them, 1 will represent on the board. So we have to find organization structures to suit that and create. I remember I used to have questions from some people saying, there's no place for more than 1. I said, if business grows, there are 4 such people needed at the top level. So we have left some businesses, we have taken up new areas. All that is by discussion and communication. And understanding, if you yourself are in his place, what you would do. Imagine that and find a solution.
I think we are just out of time. Maybe a last question. It's a long question, we'll take it away.
Yeah, okay.
Can I have it now? Sir, good afternoon. I'm Jrd Tata from Mikasa. We are very thankful for learning your experience. We are also into manufacturing of construction equipments like the hoists, the elevators, patching plants, and the paving machine. From the present economic scenario, there has been a little bit slowdown on the infrastructure sector. So with your experience, how long do you feel it is going to continue? And any contingency plan for the companies, since it was known it had to happen. So what should have it been?
I think it's very difficult to predict, but at the same time, the country needs the economy to keep moving. And the best way that country can do, and we also have to catch up with China in infrastructure. That means they have to invest more in infrastructure and create more projects through PPP and other models, in addition to encouraging private sector also to do a lot more than by creating such environment. I think for India's economy to grow, infrastructure and especially power plants, I would say, apart from the normal other infrastructure, we have a lot to be built, and there's enough work for everyone. In fact, I feel there's a shortage of people. There are not enough people, and if you can encourage, and you can only do better production with mechanization, then you come in, because L&T also has got one business, which is construction and earth-moving equipment. And suddenly it went up 60%, 70% growth for the last few years, and now it has come down. But this is part of business scenario, it happens. You should be able to sustain that. And if more projects are potentially there, because next 20 years I don't believe we have less work. There's more and more work to come. So you have to sustain for 1 or 2 years. I think after the election I'll give another 6 months. By the time the new government settles down, I think we'll have right policies to support infrastructure development, the economy to grow. So, thank you very much indeed, and thanks once again to Dr. Kasturirangan and Mrs. Menon and everyone here, my friend who introduced me. Thank you very much, and I really enjoyed talking to you. And I must say that I feel part of one of you. And anytime you have any doubts, anything you have to consult me, feel free, because I'm retired. I can afford to give you advice which costs nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. 43 years of experience and 4,000 projects. It's very evident from the way we had this presentation. And it's also difficult to, to get the most out of him, maybe with about 1.5 hours, and we tried our best to get the maximum value from the last 1.5 hours. I'm sure my colleagues here would like to talk to you during lunchtime, which is just coming up. To summarize what he said is very difficult, but what I liked was that leadership should be anchored in an ethical system. The value systems, he talked of the purity of thought and unity of purpose. I think this is what came out very, very clearly from the scriptures and from what he said. To simply say that where there is unity of thought, purity of purpose, anchored in ethics and values, I think an organization will definitely succeed. And it is the role of the leader to walk the talk and take the organization along. With those words, let me thank you once again for an excellent presentation. And all of us enjoyed. Of course, it was an experience from a respected organization like L&T, which also stands for very high standards in terms of not only performance, but also on the way they do business. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you.
I request Dr. Rangan, our director, to give this memento on behalf of all of you and the faculty.